For decades, we've been working off this quiet assumption, like, if the universe is this old and there are this many stars just everywhere, then someone else has to be close by, right? Close enough that maybe our signals cross paths. Close enough that we're not totally alone in our little corner of the cosmos. But what if we've been wrong this whole time? So here's what keeps me up at night. Some research is suggesting that the nearest civilization with technology, capable of sending signals, building stuff, might be 33,000 light years away. They're not hiding from us. They're not ignoring our calls. They're just really, really far away. Like, on the complete opposite side of the Milky Way, separated by this insane gulf of space that makes the word nearby totally meaningless. Just think about that distance for a second. Any light leaving that civilization started its journey before humans even figured out farming. Before we had writing. Before the first cities showed up on Earth. So if they sent us a message back then, it would be arriving now, long after their whole society probably changed into something we wouldn't even recognize, if they're even still around. And honestly, the silence we've been hearing all this time might not be some big mystery. It might just be exactly what you'd expect when you actually factor in time, physics, how evolution works, and just how stupidly massive space really is. Today we're getting into why the galaxy is way emptier than we thought. And I don't mean that in some depressing way. More like, this is just what happens when you live in a relativistic universe. But before we dive in, if you're into this kind of mind-bending cosmic stuff, hitting like or subscribe actually helps the channel grow. I know everyone says that, but it's true. Because the real question isn't, are we alone anymore? It's whether anyone could ever even be close enough to matter. Okay, so on Earth, distance feels like something we can deal with. A few hours in a plane gets you to another city. A day of travel puts you on a different continent. So we take that same thinking and apply it to space. We look up at the stars and go, okay, yeah, the galaxy's huge, but if life's out there, it's probably somewhere reasonably close. The galaxy doesn't work that way. The Milky Way is roughly 100,000 light years across. We're talking hundreds of billions of stars scattered through this rotating disk with a bulge in the middle and this diffuse halo around everything. And we're sitting about 26,000 light years from the galactic center, which means even from where we are, we can only see part of our own galaxy. Light from some of those distant regions. It's been traveling longer than human civilization has even existed. So when we're talking about 33,000 light years, this isn't like your neighbor down the street. This is nearly a third of the entire galaxy's diameter. That's not nearby by any definition that matters. It's isolation on a scale that completely breaks how we think about what crowded even means. But here's where it gets wild. The galaxy isn't just big, most of it is straight up hostile to life. The galactic center, total chaos. It's dense, radiation-soaked, with supernovae popping off all the time. You've got these massive gravitational forces just wrecking planetary systems before they can stabilize. Any civilization unlucky enough to form in that region gets fried way before anything complex can develop. And the outer edges, yeah, they're quieter, but they're basically dead zones. Not enough heavy elements out there. You need those metals to build rocky planets, to get complex chemistry going, to support any kind of biology. It's just hydrogen and helium floating around doing nothing, so life can only really happen in this narrow band between those two extremes. We happen to be in it. But even in this habitable zone, you still need a ton of things to line up. Stable orbits, stars that stick around long enough, magnetic fields to protect the surface, liquid water, and then you need biology to actually emerge, survive, and not get wiped out by extinction events for literally billions of years. Intelligence. That shows up late in the game, if it shows up at all. And we're talking about technological intelligence here, the kind that can build radio telescopes and broadcast into space. That narrows it down even more. When you stack all these filters on top of each other, intelligence doesn't pop up frequently or evenly. It appears in these isolated pockets, crazy far apart from each other. Each one's basically a unique accident, not some inevitable thing. 33,000 light years between civilizations. That's not weird. That's just what randomness looks like when you're dealing with galactic scales. But even if life does beat all those ridiculous odds and shows up somewhere else in the habitable zone, we've got this other massive problem that nobody really talks about enough. Time. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. The Milky Way's about 13 billion years old. But stars didn't all form at the same time, right? Some regions went through this early, violent star formation. Others formed slowly and quietly. The ages are all over the place, depending on where you're looking. And here's the thing. Complex life takes forever to evolve. Modern humans, we've only been around for like 300,000 years. Industrial civilization that can actually send signals into space, we've had that for maybe 200 years. Just wrap your head around that for a second. The Milky Way has existed for 13 billion years. We've been technologically visible for 200 years. That's 0.0000015% of galactic history. Like, barely a blip. So what are the odds that two civilizations exist at the same time in the same region of space and can actually detect each other? Pretty much zero. Let me put it this way. Imagine there's a football stadium that represents the entire 13 billion year history of the galaxy. You're trying to meet up with a friend inside, but neither of you has a phone. You can only be in the stadium for 1 second. Your friend can only be there for 1 second. What are the actual chances you both walk in at the exact same second? Yeah, that's the situation we're in. Some civilization could have risen and fallen 2 billion years ago. They built incredible tech, explored nearby stars, sent out signals, then went extinct before Earth was even a thing. Their broadcasts would have passed through our solar system back when it was just a cloud of gas and dust. Or maybe there's a civilization out there right now, but they won't invent radio for another 50,000 years. By the time their first signal reaches us, human civilization might look completely different, or we might not be here at all. This is why the 33,000 light-year gap is so brutal, because distance isn't just about space, it's about time. A civilization 33,000 light-years away is also 33,000 years away in time. That gap just compounds all the uncertainty and turns what we think of as proximity into this crazy, fleeting coincidence. We're not just separated by space, we're separated by time, and the universe doesn't owe us any kind of synchronization. The galaxy doesn't care if we're lonely. The silence isn't proof that nobody's out there. It's just proof of distance and absolutely terrible timing. Okay, but let's say we get super lucky for a minute. Let's say there is some civilization out there right now, existing at the same time as us, and they're blasting powerful signals into space. We've still got a problem. Physics. Radio waves don't just travel intact across the galaxy. They spread out and weaken as they go, their energy dispersing in every direction. By the time they've travelled thousands of light years, they're basically indistinguishable from all the other cosmic background noise, unless they're insanely powerful or super precisely aimed. All that accidental leakage from technology, TV broadcasts, radar, radio stations, it becomes totally irrelevant across galactic distances. It just dissolves into the background hum of the universe. So detection actually requires intent. A civilization has to choose to broadcast, choose to aim it, choose to keep doing it for a really long time. And that decision has to line up perfectly with our listening efforts, which we've only been seriously doing for like 70 years. The alignment you'd need for this to work is insane. And here's the kicker. Technology on Earth is already changing in ways that make us less visible. Our communications are getting more efficient, more compact, less likely to leak out into space. Our strongest radio signals are actually fading compared to the early days of broadcasting. If other civilizations follow the same path, and honestly, why wouldn't they? Then their detectable phase might be super short. A few hundred years maybe, could be even less. So now we're not just dealing with spatial distance and time not lining up. We're also dealing with the fact that technology naturally evolves away from being detectable. Distance weakens the signal. Time throws off the alignment. Technology goes quiet on its own. Any one of these would make contact hard. All three together. It makes it basically impossible. The silence we're experiencing isn't bad luck. It's literally the expected result when physics, biology, and time all work together. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, but if there are advanced civilizations that have been around for a while, shouldn't the galaxy look different? Shouldn't we see evidence of them everywhere? This is the classic Fermi paradox question, right? If even one civilization figured out interstellar expansion, wouldn't they leave traces all over the place? But that assumes a bunch of things that might not actually be true. First off, interstellar travel isn't just hard. It's brutally slow and insanely expensive, energy-wise. Even if you could travel between stars, you're looking at journeys that last centuries or millennia. Expansion wouldn't look like some wave spreading across the galaxy. It'd be more like this fragile chain of isolated outposts that get more and more disconnected from whatever culture originally sent them. Second, and this is important, expansion might not even be a universal goal. Intelligence doesn't evolve to fill up space. It evolves to solve problems right in front of it. Curiosity, survival, efficiency. None of those automatically mean you're going to colonize distant stars. A civilization might just turn inward. Focus on making things sustainable. Build virtual environments. Develop ways of existing that don't require spreading physically across the galaxy. And even if expansion does happen, it might be really subtle. Sparse infrastructure, optimized energy use instead of just using more and more power. The galaxy could be full of advanced societies that are basically invisible unless you're right next to them. If civilizations really are separated by tens of thousands of light years, then trying to make contact through expansion becomes not just unlikely, it's pointless. By the time one culture physically reaches another region, all the reasons they started the journey might not even exist anymore. The fact that we haven't been visited doesn't mean everyone's extinct or silent. It just means distance. The galaxy's simply too big for anyone to take it over. So where does all this leave us? We've covered how the galactic habitable zone cuts down the number of candidate stars. We've looked at how time throws civilizations out of sync across billions of years. We've seen how signals get weaker and how technology naturally evolves toward being invisible. And we've talked about how expansion might not even be something everyone wants to do. All of it points to the same thing. The galaxy isn't emptier because life is impossible. It's emptier because the specific conditions you'd need for two civilizations to exist at the same time, be detectable to each other, and be close enough to actually matter. Those conditions are so ridiculously specific that isolation just becomes normal. And here's what really gets me about all this. It completely reframes what intelligence even means. On Earth, intelligence feels like the center of everything because it's all we know. We build these narratives where we assume awareness naturally spreads, that knowledge seeks out contact, that communication is just inevitable. But the universe doesn't think that way. Intelligence pops up in specific contexts. It adapts to whatever environment it's in. It develops technology based on nearby resources. Everything's shaped by immediate problems, not some distant possibility. If intelligent civilizations really are separated by tens of thousands of light years, then each one basically lives in its own universe. The broader galaxy is just an abstract idea, something you infer from physics and observation, but never actually experience. Contact isn't part of day-to-day reality. Isolation is the default. And you know what? There's actually something kind of profound about that. Awareness doesn't need connectivity to matter. Knowledge doesn't require having neighbors. A civilization can develop this deep understanding of the cosmos while being completely alone in practice. From that angle, humanity's situation isn't special or unusual. We're not early. We're not late. We're probably just typical residents of a galaxy where intelligence shows up independently, exists briefly, and stays far apart. The silence we're hearing isn't the silence of nobody being there. It's the silence of separation. And at the scale of a galaxy, loneliness isn't even really a feeling. It's just geometry. So why do we keep searching? Why keep listening to the sky when contact seems impossible? Why build all these instruments, analyze all this noise, and wait for signals that might never show up? Because searching for extraterrestrial intelligence isn't really about finding other people. It's about understanding ourselves in context. Every limitation we discover tells us something about what intelligence is allowed to be in this universe. Every silence helps narrow down the possibilities. Every time we don't detect something, we learn something real about time, distance, evolution, and what it takes to survive. Listening is this act of humility. It's saying that humanity isn't the guaranteed outcome of cosmic evolution. It treats intelligence as this phenomenon worth understanding, whether it looks like us or not. And even if we never pick up a single signal, the effort isn't wasted. We learn how fragile being detectable actually is, how narrow these windows of overlap really are, how easily civilizations can exist without leaving any lasting mark on the galaxy. The silence doesn't tell us intelligence is rare. It tells us that existing at the same time is rare. It doesn't say the universe is empty. It says the universe is large, unimaginably, structurally, devastatingly large. And here's the thing. If we really are alone for the next 33,000 light years in any direction, then this moment we're in right now, it matters more, not less. It means that right now, in this tiny window of cosmic time, the Milky Way only knows itself through us. Through the questions we ask, through us listening, through our willingness to stare into all that silence and actually learn from it. The galaxy is emptier than we thought, but that doesn't make us smaller or less important. It makes every discovery we make, every time we choose to preserve what we've built, every moment we keep the conversation going, even if it's just with ourselves, absolutely precious. Keep looking up, and keep asking the questions, even when the universe stays quiet.